AITA for leaving after my fiancée said I was only her safe choice? I'm Tom, 34, and at the time, I had been with Emily for 6 years and engaged to her for almost 8 months. We were living a pretty ordinary life, the kind where the shared grocery list mattered more than big romantic gestures, where a wedding countdown magnet was stuck to the fridge, and where every Sunday somehow turned into the same stupid argument about whether pancakes counted as dinner. For a long time, I loved that kind of boring. I thought it meant we were building something real. Emily was easy to love in the beginning. She remembered little things. She knew how I took my coffee without asking. She could walk into a tense room, make one joke, and suddenly everyone was breathing again. She was warm in a way that felt almost careless, like she had more affection than she knew what to do with. That was part of why I fell for her. It was also the reason I spent too long explaining away Mason. Mason was 35, one of Emily's old friends from before we got together. When she first brought him back around, I didn't think much of it. He was loud, sarcastic, the kind of guy who called everyone buddy, like he was doing them a favor. Emily said he had been going through a rough time and needed his friends around him. He's lonely, Tom, she told me one night while we were cleaning up after dinner. She was loading plates into the dishwasher, not looking at me. Not every guy who talks to me is a threat. I didn't say he was a threat, I said. You didn't have to. That became the pattern. Mason texted her late at night, and if I noticed her phone lighting up on the nightstand, I was insecure. Mason called her Emmy in a soft little voice nobody else used, and if I said that nickname felt private, I was overthinking. Mason put his hand on her lower back in group photos, and if I stiffened, Emily whispered, "Do not make this weird." So I tried not to make it weird. At first, I included him. I invited him to a football Sunday at our place. I asked if he wanted a beer. I laughed at a few of his jokes, even when they were mostly just insults disguised as jokes. I told myself that being a secure fiancé meant not acting like every male friend was competition. But Mason seemed to enjoy finding the line and stepping on it with one toe. One night at a friend's birthday, he slid into the booth beside Emily before I could sit down and said, "Relax, man. You already got the ring." A few people laughed. Rachel, one of our mutual friends, looked down at her drink and stirred it even though there was nothing to stir. I smiled because everyone was watching. Emily bumped her shoulder into his and said, "Ignore him. He's just messing around." I said, "I know." But I didn't know. Not anymore. The wedding planning made everything worse. Emily had insisted she wanted to handle most of the pretty details, which was fine with me. I paid most of the bigger deposits because I had been saving longer, and she managed the vendor emails, decor samples, invitations, and all the little things that seemed to multiply every time we opened a spreadsheet. We had a joint savings account for wedding expenses and a shared credit card for deposits. Nothing fancy. We both had access. We both could see what went in and out. At least, that was what I thought. The first strange charge I noticed was labeled adjustment. It was through a payment app, not a vendor portal. I asked Emily about it while she was sitting on the couch with her feet tucked under her, scrolling on her phone. "What's this adjustment charge?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Wedding stuff." "What kind of wedding stuff?" "Decor samples, I think. Or maybe the invitation changes. I've been juggling like 6 things." It went through a payment app. Now she looked up. Her face didn't change much, but her voice did. It got lighter, sharper. "You said you wanted me to handle details," she said. "So let me handle details. I'm not attacking you. I'm asking because it's from the shared card. You know, this is exactly what I'm talking about." I closed the banking app. "What are you talking about?" "The way you hover. The way you ask questions like I'm doing something wrong." I asked what a charge was. And I answered. She went back to her phone, and I sat there feeling like somehow I had walked into the room holding an accusation I didn't remember making. After that, I tried to be even more careful with my words. That was my mistake. I thought if I phrased things calmly enough, she would hear me. I thought the problem was my delivery, not her refusal. A few weeks before the engagement dinner, Mason started showing up in more conversations than usual. Emily mentioned that he was stressed. Emily mentioned that he might have to move. Emily mentioned that people were being unfair to him. I asked, "Is something going on with him?" She was standing at the kitchen island, eating leftover pasta straight out of the container. "Why?" she said. "Because you've brought him up a lot." She rolled her eyes. "He's my friend." "I know." "Do you?" I took a breath. I'm not asking you to stop having friends. I'm asking you to stop making me feel stupid for noticing things. Emily set the fork down. You hear yourself, right? She said. That sounds controlling. That word landed heavy. Controlling. I hated it. I hated that she knew I hated it. My parents fought like that when I was a kid, with one person always checking up and the other always defending. I had promised myself I would never be the guy who demanded phone passwords or told someone who they could talk to. So I backed down. Again. The public jokes got sharper after that. Mason joked that Emily used to have better taste. Emily laughed. Mason said I looked like the kind of guy who scheduled intimacy on a calendar. Emily told him to shut up, but she was smiling when she said it. At another dinner, Mason raised his glass and said, to stability. Not exciting, but it pays the bills. Rachel tried to change the subject that time. So, Emily, did you pick shoes yet? Emily jumped right into wedding talk like nothing had happened. I sat there with my napkin folded in my lap, wondering when I had become the one everyone expected to absorb the discomfort. The engagement dinner was supposed to be small. Close friends, a few family members, Emily's mother Diane, my friend Caleb, Rachel, and a handful of people who had been around us long enough to know our usual rhythms. It was held in a private room at a restaurant with dim lights and white tablecloths, the kind of place Emily said felt grown-up but not stiff. I remember stupid details from that night with perfect clarity. The condensation on my water glass. The way Diane kept adjusting the little centerpiece because it leaned toward her plate. The smell of garlic bread hitting the table right before Mason made his first comment. Emily was glowing. I mean that. She looked beautiful, laughing with her head tilted back, her hand flashing the ring every time she moved. For about 20 minutes, I let myself relax. I watched her talk with my aunt. Watched Diane tear up during a toast, watched Caleb give me a tiny nod from across the table like, you good? I was trying to be. Then Mason leaned back in his chair and said, I still can't believe she's actually settling down. A few people chuckled. Emily waved a hand. Oh, please. No, seriously, he said, grinning at me. She used to be fun. Then Tom came along with his responsible face and ruined everything. I felt Caleb's eyes move to me. I kept my voice even. Careful, Mason. That responsible face is paying for the garlic bread. That got a Real laugh, and for 1 second, I thought I had managed it. I had answered without being angry. I had turned it back without turning it into a fight. Then Emily tapped her champagne glass with her fingernail. Okay, she said, smiling like she was about to make a cute speech. Mason is the guy you date when you want fun. Tom is the guy you marry when you want stability. The room changed. It wasn't silence exactly. There were a few weak laughs, the kind people make when they are waiting to see whether something is allowed to be funny. Rachel's face froze. Diane blinked too fast. Mason smirked into his drink. I looked at Emily, waiting for her to correct herself. She didn't. So I asked, is this really the joke we're going with tonight? Her smile dropped just enough for me to see the irritation underneath. You always make everything about your ego. There it was. The little door she always opened for everyone else. If I reacted, I proved her point. If I stayed quiet, the joke stood. I set my champagne glass down carefully. You're right, I said. I don't want to ruin the mood. I stood, thanked everyone for coming, and walked out. Behind me, a chair scraped against the floor. Someone said my name. I didn't turn around. My hands were shaking by the time I got to my car, but I didn't slam the door. I didn't peel out of the parking lot. I just sat there, staring at the steering wheel, hearing her words again and again. Fun choice. Stability. Not love. Not partner. Not the man she wanted. Stability. My phone started buzzing before I made it out of the parking lot. Emily, you embarrassed me by leaving. Emily, everyone noticed. Emily, this is exactly what I mean when I say you make everything about your feelings. I waited for the apology. I waited for even one sentence that sounded like she understood what she had done. It didn't come. Instead, the family group chat started lighting up. Diane wrote, Tom, honey, I think emotions got high. Maybe you two should talk before this gets bigger. Then Emily wrote, I'm devastated. I can't believe he walked out because of a joke. A joke. I drove to a gas station that was still open and parked under the fluorescent lights. I didn't go inside. I just sat there while cars came and went, while people bought snacks and lottery tickets and didn't know that my life had cracked open 10 feet away from them. Caleb called. I answered, but I didn't say anything at first. He did. Do not text angry, he said. I laughed once, but it came out wrong. Nice to hear from you too. I mean it. She's already telling people you stormed out over nothing. Of course she is. Come over if you need to. Or go home. But whatever you do, don't give her a paragraph she can screenshot. I looked at Emily's texts again. Tom, I'm not discussing this tonight. Emily, of course. Silent treatment now. Tom, no. Documentation. I didn't even fully know what I meant until I typed it. Then I went home and opened my laptop. The apartment was too quiet. The wedding countdown magnet on the fridge said 73 days. Emily had drawn a little heart around the number that morning. Her half-finished mug of tea was still on the coffee table, a pale ring forming underneath it because she never used coasters unless guests were over. For a few minutes, I stood in the living room and let myself feel the grief of it. Not the clean grief that comes after a decision, but the ugly kind that still wants the person who hurt you to walk through the door and say they didn't mean it. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and started opening records. At first, I was looking for one lie, one dinner, one gift, one charge that would prove I wasn't crazy for feeling something was off. What I found was a filing system for all of them. The charge Emily had called decor samples did not match any decor company. Another payment labeled custom invitations had gone through a payment app to an account I didn't recognize at first. A transfer from our joint savings into Emily's personal account had happened the same week Mason posted online about having a rough month and needing one good break. I opened the wedding email inbox. It was a shared account we had made because Emily said it would keep everything organized. Venue, florist, photographer, catering, alterations, invitations. All the folders were neat. Too neat. I compared the florist's balance email to the amount Emily said we had paid. They didn't match. The venue confirmation showed one deposit, but the shared card had a second charge Emily had described as a venue hold adjustment. There was no venue hold adjustment. By 2 a.m, I had downloaded 3 months of bank statements as PDFs. By 3, I had a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, labels, and vendor confirmations. By 4, I stopped pretending I was doing normal wedding planning and started naming files things like Mason Timeline and Emily Contradictions. My hands shook only once that night. It happened when I opened the trash folder in the wedding email. There was a deleted payment confirmation from 2 weeks earlier. The subject line said, Venue Hold Adjustment. The body of the email did not mention the venue. It confirmed a transfer to Mason. The amount was not life-destroying money. It wasn't some movie-level secret fortune, but it was enough to matter. Enough to cover a late rent payment. Enough to make my stomach go cold because it came from money we had set aside for our wedding. I clicked around with that awful calm people get when panic has nowhere else to go. The transfer note was vague. Adjustment. Same word as before. Adjustment. Like my trust had been a bookkeeping error. I didn't confront Emily the next morning. That surprised me. Part of me wanted to wake her up with the laptop open and demand she explain every line. But Caleb's voice was still in my head. Do not give her a paragraph she can screenshot. So I gave her nothing. I changed my personal passwords. I enabled 2-factor authentication on accounts where I had been lazy. I checked which autopays were linked to the shared card and which vendors had my name on the contracts. I froze the shared card where I could and moved the personal money Emily had access to back into an account only I controlled. Then I started calling vendors. I kept my voice polite, almost boring. Hi, I'm calling to confirm the current balance and any future scheduled charges under my authorization. Most of the conversations were simple. Some were painful. The florist emailed me a written confirmation that the balance was lower than Emily had claimed. The invitation company confirmed they had not charged any rush correction fee. The vendor coordinator for the venue sounded confused when I mentioned the second hold. We don't have a balance under that amount, she said. Your last payment was 3 weeks ago. I can send that in writing. Please do, I said. There was a pause. Is everything okay with the event? She asked. I looked at the countdown magnet on the fridge. No, I said, but I'm trying to make sure the paperwork is. By Saturday afternoon, Emily realized something had changed. She called me 6 times. I didn't answer until I was ready. When I did, the first thing she said was, Did you freeze the card? Not I'm sorry. Not can we talk about dinner? Not I shouldn't have said that. Did you freeze the card? I paused it, I said. Why would you do that? To stop new charges. For our wedding? for anything I haven't personally confirmed. She went quiet for half a second, then came back sharper. You're punishing me. I'm protecting myself. From what? Your fiancé planning a wedding. From charges I don't recognize. Another pause. Then, softer, more dangerous. Tom, you are scaring me. That almost worked. I hate admitting that, but it almost did. For 6 years, her fear mattered to me. If she said I was hurting her, my instinct was to stop everything and fix it. But this time, I was looking at a folder full of reasons not to trust that instinct. I'm not yelling, I said. I'm not threatening you. I'm not discussing this over the phone. So now you're just going to make decisions without me? No. I'm going to stop funding decisions you made without me. She hung up. 10 minutes later, Diane called. I didn't answer. Then Emily's cousin texted that I needed to be careful not to ruin something good over pride. Someone else wrote in the group chat that weddings were stressful and I should apologize before things got out of hand. Emily had gotten to them first. That was when I called Caleb and asked if he could come over. He showed up with coffee, a folder, and the expression of a man who had been waiting months to say something, but knew better than to start with, I told you so. I spread everything across the kitchen table. Bank statements, vendor emails, screenshots, payment confirmations, texts from Emily, the family group chat, a couple of screenshots I had taken months earlier and then ignored because I didn't want to be that guy. Caleb read quietly. When he got to the deleted payment confirmation, he swore under his breath. Keep going, I said. He did. Then we found the message that changed the way I saw the entire relationship. It wasn't hidden in some secret spy app. It was in a thread Emily had left open on the tablet we both used in the kitchen for recipes and grocery lists. The messages synced there because she had signed in months earlier and never signed out. I didn't go digging through every private word she had ever written. I searched Mason's name because the money already pointed there. There it was. Mason, your wallet with a ring giving you trouble again? Emily, don't be mean. Mason, I'm serious. Guy acts like a bank manager with feelings. Emily, he'd lose it if he knew. Mason, then don't tell him. Emily, I'm not stupid. I sat back from the table. Caleb looked at me. You need a lawyer. We're not married. Good. Still talk to one. Contracts, shared accounts, lease stuff, repayment. You don't want to guess. I want to call her right now. I know. I want to ask her how she could sit next to me, wear my ring, and call me controlling while using our money for him. I know, Caleb said again. But do not give her a chance to turn your anger into the story. Let the receipts talk. So I did. I scheduled a legal consultation for Monday. I printed everything that mattered. I saved copies in 2 places. I emailed each vendor with the same clean line. Please confirm in writing that no further charges will be processed under my authorization without my direct approval. It felt strange how much power there was in being boring. No screaming. No threats. No dramatic post online. No late-night drive to Mason's place. Just passwords, PDFs, cancellation windows, and written confirmation. On Sunday morning, Emily texted me that her family was doing brunch and that I owed everyone an explanation. I almost laughed. She had spent months making me explain myself for noticing things. Now she wanted one more performance. Caleb offered to come with me. I told him no. Not because I didn't want support, but because I needed Emily's family to see that I was not arriving with a mob. I was arriving with paper. The brunch was at Diane's house. I had been there so many times I could walk from the front door to the kitchen in the dark. The place smelled like coffee, bacon, and those cinnamon rolls Diane made from a can but always put in a ceramic dish, so they looked homemade. Everyone was already seated when I walked in. Emily sat near Diane, eyes red but dry. She was wearing the sweater I once told her made her look soft. That detail hit me harder than I expected. She knew what she was doing. She always did. Diane stood first. Tom, she said, like she was greeting someone sick. I'm glad you came. I nodded and took the empty chair at the end of the table. Nobody offered me coffee. For 10 minutes, I let them talk. Diane said weddings brought out anxiety. Emily's aunt said men and women could be friends and trust was important. Emily's cousin said walking out of a dinner was humiliating. Rachel was there too, sitting with her shoulders tight, looking at me and then away. Emily waited until everyone else had warmed the room for her. Then she said, I have spent months trying to reassure Tom that Mason is just my friend. And no matter what I do, he turns it into something ugly. He froze our card. He's canceling wedding things behind my back. He's trying to punish me because he got embarrassed over one joke. One joke, I said quietly. Diane folded her hands. Tom, if you can't handle her having friends, maybe you're not ready to be married. Emily looked down at her lap, like the sentence hurt her too much to hear. It was good. I had to give her that. She knew how to perform pain without overacting. I placed the folder on the table. Emily's head snapped up. What is that? She said. I didn't answer her. I looked at Diane. If I'm the insecure one, I said, then let's stop guessing and read what actually happened. Emily stood so fast her chair bumped the wall behind her. No, she said. You are not doing this. Diane frowned. Doing what? Emily's voice rose. He's humiliating me in front of my family. I looked at her then. No, I said. I'm done protecting the version of you that kept hurting me. The room went still. I opened the folder. I started with the vendor emails, because those were clean. Dates. Amounts. Confirmations. No emotion. I showed the florist's actual balance beside the charge Emily had claimed was floral. I showed the invitation company's email saying there was no rush correction fee. I showed the venue coordinator's written confirmation that the venue hold adjustment did not exist. Diane's face changed first. Not fully, just enough. Then I showed the payment app transfers. Adjustment. Deposit. Emergency. Emily said, those are taken out of context. I said, then give the context. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I showed the deleted email confirmation from the wedding inbox. Diane leaned forward, squinting. Emily, she said slowly, why is Mason's name on a wedding transfer? Emily's face flushed. It wasn't like that. What was it like? I asked. He needed help. With our wedding money? She looked at me like I had slapped her, which made something inside me finally go cold. You're making it sound disgusting, she said. It is disgusting. Rachel let out a tiny breath. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. Emily turned to the room. This is what he does. He makes everything about money and control. I told you. You told us he controlled every dollar, Diane said, still looking at the papers. This says you had full access. I did, but... And he paid most of these deposits? Emily didn't answer. I took out the screenshots last. I didn't read every message aloud. I wasn't there to entertain anyone. I passed the page to Diane first. Her mouth tightened when she got to Mason's line. Your wallet with a ring giving you trouble again? She looked at Emily. Emily whispered, I didn't say that. No, I said. You just didn't defend me. Diane passed the page to Emily's aunt. Rachel covered her mouth. Emily grabbed her phone. I'm calling Mason, she said. He'll explain. No one stopped her. We all sat there while the call rang. And rang. And went to voicemail. Emily hung up and tried again. Same thing. Her hands were shaking now. Not mine. A minute later, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, then tried to hide it. Read it, I said. No. Diane's voice was quiet. Emily, read it. Emily stared at the phone like she could change the words by hating them hard enough. Then Rachel, who was sitting close enough, looked down and read it aloud softly. He says, don't drag me into your relationship drama. I never asked you to blow up your life for me. Nobody moved. That was the moment Emily lost the room. Not when I showed the bank records. Not when Diane saw the transfers. Not even when everyone saw Mason call me the wallet with a ring. It was when Mason refused to stand beside her in the mess she had made for him. Emily sat down slowly. Her voice got small. He didn't mean it like that. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the dinner table. The laughter. The way she said stability like it was a consolation prize. The months of calling me insecure while she moved our money around. The group chat where she made me the villain before I could even explain I was bleeding. I closed the folder. The wedding is canceled, I said. Emily looked up. Tom, no. You can't just decide that in front of everyone. I already decided it before I walked in. I came here because you told everyone I owed them an explanation. Diane pressed her fingers to her forehead. Emily's aunt muttered something I couldn't hear. I kept my voice level because if I raised it, they would remember the volume instead of the words. Any future conversation between us has 3 conditions, I said. First, you correct the lies you told about me. To the family chat, to our friends, to anyone you told I was controlling or abusive because I asked about money and Mason. Second, you repay what you used on him or sign a repayment agreement. Third, You get counseling and cut Mason off completely. Not so we can fix the wedding. The wedding is over. Those are the conditions for me speaking to you about anything beyond logistics. Emily's eyes filled. You're trying to destroy me. No, I said. Accountability is not the same as cruelty. You're humiliating me. I looked around the table, at the people who had been ready to make me apologize 10 minutes earlier. I didn't leave because I was jealous, I said. I left because I finally understood the joke was me. Then I stood up. Diane said my name, but not the way she had when I arrived. This time it sounded like she wanted to stop me because she didn't know how to fix what had just happened. I didn't stay to help her. The fallout came in waves. First, silence. The family group chat went dead for almost a day. No little thumbs-up reactions. No thinking of you messages. No one posting brunch leftovers or asking about wedding colors. Then the private text started. Rachel wrote first. I should have said something at dinner. It wasn't funny. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. I stared at that message for a long time before answering. Thank you for saying that. She replied, I know it doesn't fix anything. No, I wrote. But it matters. Caleb came by that night with takeout and didn't ask me how I was every 5 minutes, which was one of the many reasons I loved him like a brother. He just put the food on the counter, took the wedding countdown magnet off my fridge, and dropped it into the junk drawer. Too soon, he asked. No, I said. Perfect timing. We ate standing at the kitchen island because sitting at the table still made me think of the folder. The legal consultation was calm and practical. Shared accounts, wedding contracts, what I could cancel, what I might lose, what I should put in writing. The attorney didn't care about Mason or jokes or champagne glasses. Honestly, that helped. It turned the disaster into tasks. Cancel this. Pause that. Document this. Don't agree to that without repayment terms. I was able to cancel some deposits. I lost part of one. Another vendor allowed me to convert the deposit into a personal credit for a future event, which felt absurd at the time because I couldn't imagine celebrating anything ever again. But I took it because taking back anything felt better than letting it burn. Emily kept texting. At first, she was angry. Emily, you had no right to show them private things. Emily, you made me look like a monster. Emily, 6 years, and you throw me away over money? I didn't answer those. Then she tried softer messages. Emily, I know I handled some things badly. Emily, Mason was going through a lot, and I felt trapped. Emily, I didn't know how to tell you because you already hated him. That one almost got a response. Not because it was true, but because it was so cleanly dishonest that my fingers actually moved toward the keyboard. Caleb stopped me. She wants a debate, he said. Don't give her one. So I sent one message. Tom, wedding cancellations and repayment can be discussed by email. I'm not debating Mason over text. She responded almost immediately. Emily, there it is. Cold Tom, punishing me with paperwork. I put the phone face down. The strangest part of ending an engagement is how many normal things keep happening. The trash still has to go out. The grocery app still sends notifications. A package of wedding favor samples arrived 3 days after the brunch, little glass jars we had planned to fill with candy. I sat on the floor with the box open and laughed until my throat hurt because the return label said celebration supplies. Nothing felt like a celebration. Diane called me 4 days after the brunch. I almost didn't answer, but she had left 2 voicemails that sounded less like pressure and more like a person standing in the wreckage trying to count what was missing. When I picked up, she said, I owe you an apology. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Okay. I believed Emily first. She's your daughter. That explains it. It doesn't excuse everything I said. I didn't make it easier for her. I didn't tell her it was fine. It wasn't. She breathed out shakily. She told us you controlled the money, that you made her ask for every little thing, that you were jealous of Mason and embarrassed her in front of friends. I know. I should have asked questions before judging you. Yes, I said. There was a long pause. Then Diane said, she's not doing well. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry to hear that. She says Mason won't talk to her. That's not something I can help with. No, I know. For the first time since all of this started, Diane sounded tired of defending her. She needs to repay you, she said. I told her that. Good. And she needs to correct what she said. Yes. I don't know if she will. Then we won't have much to talk about. I could tell that hurt Diane, but she didn't argue. 2 weeks after the engagement dinner, Emily finally sent a message to the family group chat. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't enough. But it was the first time she put any piece of the truth somewhere other people could see it. Emily, I need to correct something. Tom did not control the wedding money. I had access to the accounts, and I made financial decisions I should not have made. I also said things about him being jealous and controlling that were unfair and not accurate. The wedding is canceled because of my choices, not because Tom overreacted to a joke. I read it 3 times. Then I put the phone down and cried. Not because I wanted her back. That feeling had been fading, not cleanly, but steadily. I cried because for months I had been carrying the weight of being misunderstood on purpose, and one small piece of it had finally been set down. The repayment agreement took longer. Emily fought it, then stalled, then said she needed time. I gave her time with deadlines. When she missed the first one, I had the attorney send a letter. That got her attention. She signed. The amount included the transfers to Mason that came from shared wedding funds and the charges she had falsely labeled as wedding expenses. It wasn't everything I had lost emotionally. There is no invoice for humiliation, but it was something real, something with dates and signatures. Mason never apologized. That didn't surprise me. A man who calls someone the wallet with a ring is not the kind of man who suddenly develops a conscience because the room gets quiet. I heard from Rachel that he told people Emily had misread the friendship and that he was just trying to be supportive. He made it sound like money had fallen into his account by accident, like he was a bystander to direct deposits. Emily called me the night I heard that. I almost didn't answer, but I did because I knew I was strong enough not to be pulled back in, and because part of me needed to hear whatever version of her was left when the charm stopped working. She was crying. Not delicate crying. Not the controlled kind she used at brunch. This was ugly and breathless. He won't answer me, she said. I sat on the edge of the bed. Her side of the closet was half empty by then, hangers sticking out at odd angles. Emily, I ruined us for someone who wouldn't even answer my call. I looked at the spot on the wall where a framed engagement photo used to hang. I had taken it down the night before and put it in the closet because throwing it away felt theatrical and looking at it felt worse. You made choices, I said. I know. You lied about me. I know. You used money for our wedding to help him. I know. And you let him mock me while I was paying for the life you were telling everyone I controlled. She sobbed harder. I don't know what's wrong with me. That was the first honest sentence she had given me in a long time. But honesty after the damage is not a time machine. Then get help, I said. Really? Not for me. Not as a performance. Get help because you blew up your life for attention from a man who liked being chosen, but didn't want to be responsible for you. Can we talk in person? No. Tom, please. No. I said again, and my voice broke that time, which made me angry and sad at once. Fix what you lied about, repay what you took, and get help. But the wedding is over. She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, Do you hate me? I thought about that. I thought about the dinner, the folder, the empty ring box in my dresser, the wedding countdown magnet buried in the junk drawer under batteries and takeout menus. I thought about all the times I had swallowed discomfort because I didn't want to be unfair. I thought about how easy it had been for her to call me controlling while depending on my restraint. No, I said finally, but I don't trust you, and I'm not marrying someone I don't trust. She cried again, softer this time. I ended the call before I could start comforting her. That was harder than canceling the venue, harder than sitting at Diane's table, harder than reading Mason's messages. Because for 6 years, comforting Emily had been muscle memory. If she cried, I moved closer. If she panicked, I steadied her. If she broke something, I helped sweep it up. This time, I let her sit in the pieces. A month later, the apartment looked different. Not better exactly, just honest. Her things were gone. The grocery list app had only my name on it. The fridge had no countdown, no color-coded appointment cards, no tasting schedule. For a while, the blank space bothered me. Then one Sunday, I made pancakes for dinner and ate them standing at the counter, not because anyone argued with me, but because I wanted to. Caleb came over later and noticed. Pancakes, he asked. Dinner, I said. He nodded like this was a serious and respectable choice. Obviously, we watched a game neither of us cared about and didn't talk about Emily until he was leaving. At the door, he said, You know you didn't overreact, right? I smiled, but it took effort. I know. Do you? I looked back at the quiet apartment. I'm getting there. And I was. Not in some dramatic, inspirational way. I wasn't suddenly fearless. I still had moments where I remembered Emily laughing at something dumb in the cereal aisle and felt the loss like a bruise. I still got angry at random times, like when I found a spare invitation sample tucked inside a drawer, or when a vendor email slipped through with the subject line, "Final wedding details." But I was no longer trapped in the version of the story where loving someone meant standing still while they turned me into the punchline. Emily wanted me to believe the problem was my insecurity. Mason wanted me to accept being the stable guy who paid bills and took jokes. Diane wanted, at least at first, for peace to matter more than truth. For a while, I tried to be fair to everyone except myself. Canceling the wedding did not feel like winning. It felt like cutting a rope after realizing the person on the other end had been tying it around your neck. But the wedding stayed canceled. The repayment plan stayed in writing. The people who mattered learned the truth. And when Emily finally had to face the room without me absorbing the awkward silence for her, she discovered what I had learned at that engagement dinner. A joke stops being harmless when someone always has to bleed for it. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.